Drea, I know clearly you have a very famous ex-husband in R. Kelly, and he was beloved. And obviously now he's uh, being met with a lot of resistance and, perhaps canceled to a certain degree. Or do you feel like cancel culture has impacted you because of some of those things dealing with him?
Oh, definitely. I've had people say that they don't want to work with me. I've had people say, you didn't say anything because you got money. You're coming forward now because you want money. There's no woman alive that you can put a price tag on. Here's the abuse, and this is how much we're going to pay you to go through it. So I kind of have to let that just roll off of my back. But I think the problem with cancer culture is there's a difference between canceling someone and making them accountable. And I think that he has to be held accountable for his crimes. But at the same time, where's the room for redemption? Because if you put someone in jail, but they're not getting counseling for the molestation they went through as a child, the illiteracy they went through, the abuse they've gone through, no one is born a monster, it's created. So if we don't get to the bottom of how to rehabilitate that person, whether they get out of jail or not, canceling them is not going to do anything for them at all. So people tend to think that my stance means that I'm somehow taking up for him or I'm backtracking on what I said. I still stand firm in my story and my truth, but I still believe at the end of the day, the only way that we get better is not just by canceling somebody. Yes, make them accountable, but also put room for redemption and also how do you make that person better?
I could see someone being critical of that answer as well. They would say, well, if we don't cancel him, who does get canceled? What would someone have to do that would warrant for them to get canceled? What would you say? Or should it be nobody? Should everyone be, able to redeem themselves?
Again, because I think we live in a society where we don't deem the difference between accountability and being canceled. Yes, should you be accountable? Listen, if accountability means jail time, so be it. But at the same time, there has to be room for how do we make it better? How do we not repeat those cycles in our home? And again, we have to start at home. You so quick to cancel a celebrity when you got a pedophile uncle that you got come to every birthday party.
How do you feel about what your ex-husband did affecting you and people attempting to cancel you because of something you did not do?
Honestly, for a while, it was hurtful because I thought, here I am, been away from this man almost 15 years. I'm coming forward for one reason. We live in a society where we will back and rally behind one white woman's lie, but we won't stand with 30 black women's truth. And if that's not real, we wouldn't have Emmett Tills of the world, okay? So I felt me coming forward, no one's listening. No one's listening to these women. So if I use my voice, lend my platform to bring some kind of validity to the story, at least someone will pay attention. And guess what? They did. But the very thing that people want to crucify me for, nail me to the cross for, why don't she get rid of her last name? Well, let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, if my name was not Kelly, you would not care. Also, Miss Jones is going through the same thing I went through and probably worse. No one's knocking on her door. Why? Because we're so obsessed with being famous, Instagram famous, YouTube famous. And if it has to do with celebrity, then we deem it important. Then we pay attention. So it shouldn't be why I kept my last name. It should be what I'm doing with this last name. Because at the end of the day, if Kelly makes 2020 follow me for a day, if it gets me on CNN, if it gets me on The View, and I can lend my platform to be a voice for the voiceless, you shouldn't be trying to cancel me. You should be trying to uplift me because I'm a black woman standing for black women when they're not being heard.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous when they try to do this. We had Tori Hart on here as well as Tamika Raymond. And we talked to them also about keeping their ex's last name. And the way that people come for women that decide to keep the same last name, to keep them and their children having the same last name, is absolutely ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, but 9 times 10, it's usually the ones who don't even know who their baby daddy is.
Okay.
That's coming for me. I was married to mine. I didn't have any out of wedlock, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is shade. So my last name is Kelly because I was married before I had mine. So go find your other 10 and figure out which last name all of them are going to take before you worry about me.
All right now.
All right. Two snaps and a Z to that.
Do you think that there's been a shift in how we are, kids are being raised, where they don't have the tools to have a respectable disagreement, a difference of opinion without feeling like a victim and feeling like I gotta lash out and punish you. I gotta come to school with a gun. There's all these crazy reactions now to things that we dealt with as young kids, like playing the dozens, cracking on each other. I think that builds character, and I feel like we're being overly protective sometimes in a way where people are not being allowed to build any kind of character, any kind of thick skin anymore. So now that opened the door for cancel culture to really take over. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have the same backbones. These young kids, they get mad and they're coming to school with a gun. Some girl turned them down. That was like normal back in the day, right? Like getting dissed or getting your heart broken. But there's something happening now where these things that were part of being a teenager, part of growing up, coming of age, are now, people are just so overly sensitive where they can't even take a difference of opinion or getting their feelings hurt.
So you know, that's interesting you say that. So you think about those who are in power and in control now, which is primarily the nerds of our generation. And, you know, maybe during the bullying, like you said, a lot of us was tough. You did have that amount of that percentage that was weak, and they, I can't take, you know, they do the little, you know how the villain always put his fist up, I'm gonna show them. And, you know, now they all group together and in power, and now this is the result of them being in the power.
So the
to
nerd,
like have everybody kind of, you can't say that.
the nerds created Facebook.
It's easy to hide, you know, like they say, behind your keyboard and kind of like this invisible cell, so to speak, and say all these negative things to people. You know what I mean?
Boy.
But it's also, I think, it's a reflection of America, and it's dangerous in a lot of ways too, for where I think, you know, things are headed. Because, again, you mentioned, you know, kids not being able to handle rejection. I mean, you know, you have a kid that goes into a parent-teacher conference for all intents and purposes and still comes back and shoots up the school.
Well, you have to think, too, the foundation of the family. There's no more big mamas. There's no more aunties. There's no more that favorite uncle. When you go in the club now, it's 3 generations in the club. You got the mama, the granddaughter, and the daughter in their catless back suits, and they twerking and dancing on the tables together. You like, well, who's the grandma, who the daughter, and who's the... We don't even have that foundationally anymore. We don't have our elders that we go to that teach us about life and to respect the struggle and what does that look like. We don't have now, everybody sitting around the table with a tablet or a phone. That used to be the time where you broke bread, you talked about issues, you talked about school, what you went through, or you had that play aunt or that play uncle that was like, I got you, or that coach. We don't have that anymore. So now I say we have a generation with no foundation. You have kids raising themselves and don't know what to do with those emotions because there's not that adult there present. Everybody worried about contours, lace fronts, and six packs. And we got these kids running around that's like they're being exposed to things at lightning speed. When we were little, we had to either find out because we snuck to the bottom of the stairs when the grown folks was in the living room talking, or it came on the news. They are getting it at lightning speed, violence, sex, drugs, body images. So what do you expect for this generation to be like? And there's nothing there that is neutralizing what they're taking in daily. Then you top that with you're being bullied and picked on. So you're in a family, again, domestic violence. If you're seeing violence, that's what you're going to put out into the world. So we have to look at the home structure to figure out why are people this way. It's not just about being sensitive, it's that people are not supported in this day and age.